All right, so first let's talk about unpacking, and we're just going to look at Lab 0102. So we'll start with the strings. Uh-oh, I accidentally closed my virtual machine. Let me bring it back. It's this one, all right? At least it's nice and fast on my ARM processor. Okay, so user interface, yeah, I don't care about that. All right, so, whoa! All right, I guess it decided to sign out to change the user interface. Fine. Okay, so now I wanted to get strings first. That's bin text and Labo 102. That's the keylogger popping up in the background. I left the malware on the machine. I didn't clean it off. All right, so now I'll browse. All right, oh, I thought I did this. Labo 102, and then go. There we are. All right. So now, notice what you see here is kind of strange. There's something called mal service. Then there's something broken. HTTPW, and the rest is missing. This might be part of it. This might be part of it here. And notice these. This is like a Windows API call, but it's only part of it. This is what happens when you pack programs. It's like zipped. It's broken up and scrambled the strings. That's why I say strings is fun, but it doesn't always work. So that shows you there's something wrong here. And in fact, one way to tell is to use PEID. That's one of the great things about this little program. If you open Lab 0102, it will tell you, I don't know what language it was written in, but if you look at the sections, they're named UPX0, UPX1, and UPX2 instead of being named .text, .data, and .rdata like they should be. And that tells you this uses the UPX packer, which is a standard ultimate packer for executables. It's a standard tool. And so you can fix it from the command line. And so this is that keylogger running, which I don't care about. I could clean it off, but I can't be bothered. All right, there we go. I'll make this bigger. So let's go look at this in UPX. And see, I've installed UPX on this machine, so you can just run it. There it is. And so I can go to where the malware lives, which is desktop, and then practical malware analysis. And then I think, let's do a dir. Yeah, again, binary collection and dir. And it's chapter 1. Okay, and dir. And there it is, Labo 102. So I can do UPX and get a help message, which is, okay, decompress. And O is the output file. So I can do UPX minus D of lab 0102 and put the output file in lab 0102 unpacked.exe. That should work if I manage to do it right. And I not packed by UPX. Oh, I did lab 103 instead of lab 102. That'll do it. There we go. And now you can see it was shrunk down to 3,000. It expanded out to 16,000. So if I do a directory, you'll see here's the original one, 3,000. Here's the unpacked one, 16,000. And if I look in there, I'll find the strings. That unzipped it. So I can run bin text again. And browse. And go to the unpacked one. And go. All right. And now I see all the usual stuff. I see whole API calls. And I find the whole URL for that network connection. And nothing's broken. So, you know, now, and this is actually the name of a mutex. A mutex is a mark in the memory that can be shared between processes. So it's common that they're used by malware to indicate that this box is owned. Anyway, you can, now that's the unpacking. So the unpacking is often something you have to do, and people can write proprietary packers. UPX is open source. You can modify the code. And so Sometimes things are packed in strange ways. So sometimes you have to unpack it without access to the unpacking software. And that is extremely easy to do. So let me just, that's the next lab, manual unpacking. And that's here. And we're going to do deliberate packing of putty and unpacking. So let me do that. We'll get this putty program, which is just a Windows SSH client. And I'm getting a particular old version just so I'll have exactly the project will just work as expected. You could use any version in principle, but you won't get the flags if you don't use this exact version. So I download this thing. All right, and it's going to complain, but I'm going to, that's for running it. I don't really want to run it right now anyway. I just want to download it. Let's see if I got it. Looks like I did get it. There we are. I have this program called Putty. All right. All right, so there's Putty, and I'm going to just copy it and put it on my desktop so I have a sort of clean copy to preserve and another copy to play with. So that should have done it. Let's see what's on my desktop. Yep, there it is. Okay, so here's Putty. Now, I'm going to compress Putty with UPX. Now we know how to do it, so I'll go Control plus to make this bigger, and then go to the desktop, and then a directory, and in there should be Putty, and there it is, putty.exe. So it's UPX, and to compress, it's minus C, I think. I guess the default is compressed. Let me check my instructions just want to get the format right. UPX, yep, just output. Okay, so UPX minus output putty comp .exe, and input is Putty. There. And so here it was 50K and it shrunk down to 260K, 500K down to 200K. So that had the expected thing. Now the interesting thing to know about this is when you run a program, let's run the original Putty, which is here. What it does is it copies, I have to tell Windows to run it. All right, it copies each section into memory and runs. And so it runs here, and this is you can just connect to any server, and I have a server. You could use samsclass.info just to connect on port 22, and it opens, and then it's going to ask if it's okay to connect, and I say yes. And then it will say log in as, and now I could put in the username and password and get in the server. The interesting thing is the compressed version that's only half as big does exactly the same thing. Here's the compressed version, and you'd never know it. Exactly works the same way because it's compressed the data sections on the disk, but it added a decompressing software, so it just loads it into memory just the same. The memory image is just the same as the uncompressed one, but the disk file doesn't match. And so this is, you could even think people might use this for legitimate software. For some reason they don't. They use this one-to-one mapping between the disk. Only as far as I know, malicious people use these kind of packers. But that's how they work. And you can see, if you open them in this program, PE Studio, you can see a lot more information about them. This program takes a little while to load. It does a lot more. But I'll mention a few things here. Here's PE Studio. And so if you open and compare those two, I go to my desktop and open Putty. Okay. Notice it sends it to VirusTotal to see if it's detected. It then does a test to see how many things are suspicious and so on. It takes a while to process. I'll start another instance of this and do Putty compressed at the same time. All right. And so you see, just the fact that it's compressed has triggered 9 virus engines, whereas this one has none. The original Putty is not malicious. This one, just the fact that it's compressed makes some of the engines think it's malicious. And you can see quite a few other things. One thing that's kind of interesting is the entropy. If you go down here in the original program, this is the overall entropy. That's not as exciting as the sections, which take a little while. Here's the imports. Here's the sections. There. That's what I wanted to show you. This is the packed file. Let's start with the unpacked one. All right. And see, there I have sections. Okay, so here's the normal sections of a Windows executable. The text section has high entropy. Now, entropy is a measure of randomness. So if all the bytes are the same, the entropy is 0. If it's uniformly all possible values, the entropy is 8 bits per byte.
You guys know there's food trucks there today?
Oh, good.
And cafeterias closed.
Oh.
And if you want to order food through Uber Eats or whatever, that's okay too. But there's also food trucks. Stay on the bridge, go down the escalator. It's right in front of the taxis are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thanks to you.
Okay, good. That's important. Anyway, so this is almost up to maximum entropy, 8 bits, because executable code is pretty random. This is our data, resource data. That's probably images. This is probably strings, like readable text strings, so it has a low entropy. And this is somewhat in between. This is probably like images or something. So that's a clue. Now, if that's what you see in a normal executable. In a packed executable, of course, you have an empty section which has nothing at all in it, because that's where the unpacked stuff is going to go. And here you have the packed section, which has almost 8 bits. This is a compressed data. Compressed data should have an entropy near 8, because that's the point. You squeezed all the air out of it and make it as small as you can. And this is actually a bug in UPX. It doesn't compress the resource section at all. It should have, but he forgot to. But so this is the point. This is where all the data lives, and it's going to unpack into here. And you can do that without having the decompressor. Whew! Something went nuts about my Windows. But anyway, probably I moved my finger on the keypad and it caused it to zoom everything in. It does things like that. So we're going to manually unpack that thing. This is complaining about the tills. I don't care. All right. Now, this is Ollie Debug is our main debugger we're going to use. It's a famous old debugger, and it's very easy to use and very popular with hackers. The only problem is it's old, so it only does 32-bit code. So for 64-bit code, you have to use X64 debug, which is a new one, but the user interface is almost the same because this became the standard. Everybody loves this user interface. So I'm going to open PuTTY.conf off my desktop here, and there it is. And now it's going to warn me that a statistical test suggests that there's something strange about this file, which there is. I'm going to say yes, I don't care. Do you want to continue analysis? I think I'll say no, don't bother analyzing it. It doesn't matter. Now I'm going to get the main screen here, and I'm going to adjust these fonts, which are obviously ridiculously too small. So right-click, Appearance, Show Fonts All, OEM Fixed. That's somewhat better. And now I can fix that by going into Options, Appearance, Fonts, OEM Fixed. Change. All right, and come on, change. There we are. Now I can go to Lucida, bold, 14, and it gets much easier to read. All right, so here's the 4 panes, and this is just like the later program Immunity, which we used yesterday. We've talked about this before. You have the registers over here, you have the stack down here, and the assembly code here. Now, we didn't pay attention to the assembly code last time, but now we're going to look at it. But first, let's make another instance of Ollie and look at the unpacked program for comparison. So you open Ollie down here. And there it is, good. And it complains about libraries or something, but I don't care. And then we find putty.exe here. All right. And hopefully I don't have to do all that adjustment again, but I might have to do this part. Looks like it's going to make me do both of them, which is rude, but that's life. I guess it only saves changes on a close. It's a fairly common procedure. But it's not too hard to do it again now that I know how to do it. Okay, so the real PuTTY starts at this address here. (0F0), and it starts with a push 60 and then a push PuTTY. That's the real PuTTY program. The compressed PuTTY starts, It's moved. I'm going to do debug restart to get it back to its default state. Restart. Yes. Yes. Got enough power. See, there we are. It's moving. The compressed one starts with push add at a different address. Now I'm going to stop this nonsense. So here's what you do if you want to unpack this thing without having access to the real unpacker. You just take a look at the code and scroll down a bit, and you don't have to go very far. This is not PuTTY. This is the unpacker. Of course, that's what first thing it does is the unpacker. So you just scroll down. And I guess I better go down a screen at a time because it's being amazingly slow to respond to me. Looks like it's not going to let me go down a screen at a time. Maybe. Anyway, I'll just use this. Still got us there. About 3 pages down, you're going to see the end of the unpacker. The unpacker is really short, about 50 machine language instructions. And the end of it is extremely obvious. Must be some big heavy thing running in the background on my machine that I don't understand to make everything so slow. Maybe it's the video recording. Well, usually that doesn't slow it down so much. Something's messed up here, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. There. There's a bunch of zeros down here. That's the end. So the unpacker goes here. All that stuff unpacks the code, and here's where it starts it. It now jumps to start PuTTY. So what you do is you put a breakpoint here, and that's F2. And F2, red is a breakpoint. So if you want to unpack the code, now you can look at the memory sections. Let's view memory and make it big and fix the font. All right, so here's the memory sections, PuTTYCOM, UPX1, UPX0 and 1, and resource. Now UPX0, if you examine it, you can right-click and dump, and you'll see, again, it's going to force me to change the font. It's all just zeros. This is an empty memory segment where the good stuff is going to go. When we run the unpacker, it will fill this. So we go back to the CPU window, and now we just run the code. It'll run to the first breakpoint, which is this red dot here. So it runs, and it hits the breakpoint. Now, if we look at that memory section, it should be full of unzipped code now. And there it is. That's the unzipped code. And now if we do one more step in the executing pane here, which is F7 to do a single step, it will do that jump. If I can find the F7 on my keyboard, there we go. There. And now we're at the real PuTTY. Remember, it started at push 60. You're in the right location. So the unpacker ran, and now it's binary identical to PuTTY. So this is how you can unzip things even if you don't have the unzipper. This is why I say, this is why you use a debugger, so you can run part of the malware. And this is a really general process. For example, if the malware has encrypted stuff, you can find the decryptor. You don't need to figure out how it works. You can use the malware's decryptor to decrypt stuff. But you put in a breakpoint to stop after decrypting. And I mentioned that's how I got in trouble. I was doing that with PHP malware, but I didn't put the breakpoint in the right place. So it ran extra code beyond the decryptor, which is malicious I didn't want. So that's why never work outside a safe environment. Anytime you touch malware, bad things might happen. So anyway, that's how you manually unpack code. And that's what I wanted to show you here. So there's some flags to find here, and there's some things to unpack.
What software and what application is
That's Ollie Debug. Yeah, you can use any debugger, but it's the standard. And so the other thing I want to show you is 1011, and I think let me just stop this video. I think